Wouldn't be much of a show if we don't find a way to put Will back in the Banks home and quickly. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Catching up, folks. I'm catching up. Bel-Air has started, and this was one of the first shows. First season was one of the first shows that I kind of went into depth with here. So I've been looking forward to getting back into this one. I enjoyed the first season. It's not groundbreaking television, but it's fun. And this one sort of follows suit. If you remember, at the end of the last season, Will father Lou came, played by Marlon Wayans, came to finally see him, and it was a rough go. They got into this big blowout, and Will ran away. Ran away not only because the situation that he had with him, but because Uncle Phil and Aunt B sort of all lied to him about it and about whether or not he was alive and all that stuff. So he felt that he couldn't trust anybody. He wanted to make it out on his own, make a name for himself. So that's where we pick up with season 2, called A Fresh Start. Now, obviously, when you do series like the way that Fresh Prince ended that first season, they kind of were like, hey, what we're choosing to do is if this ends this way, we're going to back ourselves into, again, good writing, all shows do this, but good writing is let's back ourselves into a corner, see if we get picked up for a second season. If we do, see how we bring it all back. The difference here is they knew that they were getting 2 seasons. So they knew that, hey, whatever we do, whatever situation we have Will in at the end of this, we'll be able to fix that in season 2. This is one of those shows that knew that they were walking out the gate with a multiple season order. So obviously, the main goal of this episode of Fresh Start is at some point we got to get Will back in that Banks home. And that's sort of what this episode is trying to see, how we repair some of the fractured relationships that mainly it's just Will's fractured relationship with Uncle Phil. How we repair that to kind of get things back to status quo of the first season. So we pick up Will is living with Jazz. He is staying with him when Jazz resides in South LA, South Central, but we've rebranded LA. LA has rebranded South Central LA as South LA. So staying in South LA. And it is given to us later that it is 2 weeks post the Lou blow up situation. He has not had a conversation or text or anything with Uncle Phil. It's the only person of the family he has not had some type of communication with. He has texted everybody else, but he has not texted Uncle Phil. Will is getting influxes of cash from a gentleman named JB. It looks sort of shady. We don't really see what it is for a minute of what he's doing, but it seems like he may have got himself into some stuff that doesn't seem quite on the up and up. But what we eventually find out that is he's hooping for cash. He's hooping for cash to try to get a connection to a D1 agent or D1 connector that can sort of put him on the path to get to the front of some D1 agents and folks. One of those ones like this person knows bigwig people and kind of wants to rub shoulders and rub elbow with them so they can put him in the correct room. So he's doing that to make money and to sort of continue his career. Hillary, who last season was put into the influencer house, but then had to start doing some things that went against her character with lingerie and cooking and all that stuff. So she and Ivy, who was brought in at the last part of the season, who was sort of the bankroll person, Hillary and Ivy have purchased the influencer house. The influencer house is theirs, and have done so by pointing out the previous owner's debt and mortgage issues. So they were able to buy him out because they looked underneath and saw that he had some issues. So they bought him out, and they are now the co-owners of this place. But it feels very much like Hillary is doing all the dirty work and the stuff, while the brand and the name and the pay is being done. Ivy is the head, and she works for her, as opposed to the two of them being partners. And that sort of is rubbing Hill the wrong way. A point that sort of happens is that Hillary, on their day one of opening and being basically an all-female influencer house, that's what they're shooting to do. Ivy is pushing her liquor brand, like her liquor water that she wants to have in every shot that they do, everything around, like that's what she's pushing. There's really no, it doesn't sound like it's being asked. There's no that can happen from it. It's like, this is what we're doing. The duo that was in the influencer house that just kept doing stupid stunts, the Black Ass Brothers, I think they were called. They come barging into the home, and Hillary's like, "I thought you'd fire them," and I was like, "No, that's not my job. I don't do that type of stuff. I don't fire all that. That's on you. So you should go ahead and fire them." And so it just shows you that she's like, "I'm boss. I do all the fun stuff. I'm the one who bankrolls this. You do the stuff that I tell you. You should fire them. That's on you." Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil um, having a convo, and on the wants Uncle Phil to apologize to Will. Thinks that's the best thing to do. You should apologize to Will and get him back in this house. His family is not whole unless we're all together, and Will is now a part of that. That makes us whole. V also then has an interview with a magazine about her art and her fellowship that she has, and with Roderick. And old Green Eyes has made it seem that she is going to be using established artists to bring about her brand and her fellowship, where V seems to want to more bring up and comers and new people that have not had the light shone on them yet. And the magazine person's like, "Oh, cool. That's not what we were told, but all right, cool." But she's like, "We'll put all that in." So the interview seems like it's going well for Aunt V. Turns out later we see that's not the one person that Will is still actively seeing is Carlton. Carlton picks him up from Jazz's place. They go to school together. There is still a camaraderie there. And they seem to be in a lot better space than they were throughout the majority of season one. A lot of the issues that I had with that first season is like it just felt like it was too much. It was going back and forth and too much, but it seems like all of that is sort of leveled out. And if you remember at the end of that first season, as Will is leaving, Carlton does drop some money into his pocket. And so we see a moment where Will's like, "Hey, I got some money. I'm going to pay you back, kind of make you whole." But he doesn't want to feel like he's put himself into a situation. And that's at that point that Carlton's like, "Well, where are you getting all this money from? Like, I don't want you to be doing anything that's bad." And Will's like, "I'm not." And then he tells him about the D1 stuff. So he brings Carlton in on the up and up. And Carlton's like, "It still sounds kind of sketchy. Like, my dad can introduce you to people much faster than I think this person can." Like, and Will is very much like, "I got it. I know he can, probably, but I want to do this on my own. I want to do things my own way." So that's sort of the thing that he took away the most from that first season is like, I don't want anybody to hand me stuff, or I am given this stuff because of my connections or my associations. I sort of want to do this on my own. Will and Lisa still got some issues to work out. They clearly have not spoken or had a conversation about about Will lying and about not really telling him the truth until post them sleeping together. They really haven't kind of have a conversation about that yet. And Will doesn't seem to be giving her much attention to answer that question or have a conversation about that. It's like, "Hey, we need to talk about that." And then some kids come in that gets his attention, and she's kind of like, "Well, I don't think we weren't done talking," but he's already moved on. And she sits down, and we kind of see him look at her like he knew what he was doing, but not telling her. It just seemed it was a real shady way to sort of that play that part. Um, but Will does mention to Carlton like, "Hey," Carlton's like, "I need some of the coolness that you have because I'm no longer allowed with my old friends, but I need me just being associated with you kind of makes me a little bit cooler." And Will's like, "Oh, I can make you cool. If you want to be cool with me, like, you're like my Batman to my Robin." And the girl comes up, Yasmin, that sort of gives Carlton the eye, and Will's like, she's digging on you. You need to go holler at that." And Carlton's like, "Nah, you really?" So Will knows that she's a part of the school group, so he takes Carlton, and they go to this like a black social club that that she is running. She's the chair of. She's the head of. And they go there, and it gets a bit feisty because somebody calls Carlton out for never coming to one of these before, outside of when he needed the black vote for elections. Like, "We don't ever see you in here." And Carlton's point to it was like, "You don't see me in here because you guys are just insular. You just talk amongst yourself. You complain, you bitch, you moan, but you don't do anything about it. You don't make any actions about it. So if you're going to get to a point where you start doing things about the moment as opposed to just speaking hot air to each other, then maybe we can get somewhere." And Yasmin's like, actually, she's kind of right. We are insular. We just talk to ourselves. Maybe we can think of things that sort of step us out of our comfort zone. And Will originally thinks it's going to go bad if Carlton is let off the handle, but it actually seems to have worked out and maybe for the better. The one guy still isn't quite effing with Carlton, but for the most part, it seems like that is on the up and up. We have caught up with all the family except for two: Jeffrey, who's outside at the moment, and Ashley. So we meet Ashley, and she is. It's her birthday. It is her birthday. Everybody's planning to come to this big party, and the big thing is whether or not Will is going to show up or not, because Will knows that if he shows up, Uncle Phil is going to be there, and it might have to have some type of conversation. So the beginning of this, Will is very much not planning to show up, and people keep asking Ash what she wants. She's like, I don't need presents. If you want to give me gifts, donate to this person or to one of my causes. The only wish that I have is that Will comes to my birthday. Like that's all I want. And that's when I'll give Uncle Phil that look like apologize, mother, apologize. But then we go to school with Ash, and Ash is met by OG Ash, her teacher, Mrs. Hughes. Tatiana, I call her Ashley. Tatiana Ali, who's in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air as Ashley, is here with our Ashley. They're all coming full circle. But she is a person who is very much in taking a special interest in Ash and giving her special projects about furthering her Black education and teaching her more about things in history that she may not get through the curriculum. So like, I'm giving you extra books, she's giving you this and that. And it seems like she has a genuine interest in Ashley, which is good. That's never going to be a problem. And anybody who have a teacher that sort of takes initiative and kind of wants to teach you more, it's always a good thing. But there's a kid in earshot, a non-Black kid in earshot, who feels like she runs and go tells the principal about this sort of special interest that she has. And we see not a big scene, but we see a scene where the principal and the teacher are kind of having a chastising moment with Mrs. Hughes. And Ashley gets wind of it, but then they close the door. She can't really see. She doesn't get much of it. So I do have a feeling that somewhere in the next episode or two, we're going to see a situation where Miss Hughes is either fired or chastised or moved out of that. And they have to do a little digging to find out why. And I feel like the two stories of Ashley feeling like, hey, they're removing Black teachers and the Black Social Club might sort of come together to blow up shine a little light on Black educators. That's my thought, but those two seem to be kind of heading in the same direction. Uncle Phil goes back to work, returns to his firm. Nobody wants him there. He returns and nobody expected him to come back. They expected him to get his DA stuff. They apologize to say, I'm sorry you didn't get that. But nobody's really happy to see him there because they were all planning to live their life and do their things as if he wasn't going to be back. So it's now kind of be back him sort of relearning the system and what the new rules are and what the new things are, even though he is a partner in this firm. And then we last catch up. The last one we catch up with Jeffrey, who is on some like double agent smoke bomb coming out of nowhere. Like, I walked past that tree and you weren't there, and now you are looking cool as a cucumber. And so at that point, he starts to sort of tell Will, like, hey, a real man faces his issues. Because Will has sort of said, like, you're a real man, you stood up, I want that for my life, and I appreciate you. He's like, hey, look, a real man stands up to his issues. He faces them heads on, and he deals with it. Right now, Will, you're going back to what's comfortable. And that's the one thing that I will say that I saw about the little montage at the beginning of him in South Central. While it's not Philly, it does have a sort of Philly vibe to it. It reminds him of home. He's no longer out of his comfort level. He's going back to sort of doing the things that he was doing before, which kind of led him into some of the troubles he was in the first place. Will's a good kid. He wound up in a situation with the gun and shooting that off because he just wound up with bad people in bad situations. He's finding himself going down that road again. And it's important that they want to get him back to the Banks family and sort of protect it and shield him from that before he does too much more damage to kind of get back on the wrong side again. Jeffrey then goes to Uncle Phil, basically to apologize. One, he gives him an update on Will. It's like, hey, Will's heading in the wrong direction. Will is doing things that don't that are not putting him in the best situation. I think we need to get him back in this household and do so quickly. And Uncle Phil's like, cool, noted. Anything else? And that's when Jeffrey's like, yo, I made some mistakes. I think I let the situation that was happening with Lou and his son, Lou and Will, I was blinded by the situation that I have with my son. And I looked at this wrong. And I apologize for that too. And Uncle Phil's like, cool. And that's it. And Jeffrey leaves, and Umpire gives him that look like, what are you doing? Like, what's wrong with you? Aunt B invites him to the party, but Jeffrey kind of already at that point sees that, like, I'm still not welcomed here, so I don't think I should come back around here. It's always amazing to me that G feels like a killer. I feel like he got bodies on him, and Uncle Phil does not feel like that. So it's always crazy to me that Uncle Phil talks so reckless to G, because I feel like if G really wanted to, Uncle Phil would be done real quick. So JB, the person that was giving him Will all that money, comes through with the connect with Doc, who is the person that he needs to sort of meet with to kind of further this relationship to get in with the folks that he needs to get in to get those D1 looks. D1 for Division One for any of the college basketball folks. I feel like you know that if you're watching the show. The problem is that connect time, once we come down to the basketball courts right now, it's happening at the same day and same time, like an hour or two before Ash's party. And Ash's party is on a boat that has a certain time that has to take off and kind of be on the water. Will and Jazz say, hey, Will says, hey, I can do both. I'm going to go in real quick, meet, and then bounce. Jazz is like, all right, cool, let's do it. I'm going to take you. So Will goes down to the courts, meets Doc, comes on a little aggressive, a little hard. Doc's like, cool, I ain't got time for you right now. I'm gonna watch this game. And then Will sits there a little bit excited, saying, maybe I can kind of get in a little bit later. I'll talk to him in a second. To that point, that Will is introduced to Jackie, who the name might sound familiar. Jackie was played by, in the original series, played by Tyra Banks. It's the one that they were super close friends, a little bit more hood girl. That's who this is, in reference, if you want a reference point. But Jackie tells Will that, hey, if you want to try to get in with Doc, you're gonna have to show him something as opposed to just coming up to talk. Like, just talking ain't gonna do it. He takes that to heart. An open challenge is made to have like a one-on-one game with this big monster type dude who comes out. And Will bravado puts him in a situation where he's like, yeah, no, I'll take him on. I'll take on anybody. And then all of a sudden he comes out as a dude that looks like Andre the Giant, like he's massive. And they start balling. Jazz getting a little impatient, like, yo, we got to roll. And so all the people on the boat, like the boat is, we keep seeing the boat is like, where's Will? They said he was coming. Still trying to do that thing. Play the game, and for a while there, it's not looking good in Will's favor. And I know the type of Will game that Will plays, and I know that he's a good shooter. So I felt like, hey, this man misses, it might be lights out. Will might run the gamut, and he does. Best of 7. Man's giving him the business, he's backing him down, but then he misses, and then Will gets it and never lets it go. He just starts having a field day. He cooks old dude. Will about that life, and Doc does pay attention. Doc smiles a little bit. He's like, yo, man, I already know who you are. After the game, he comes over to him like, look, I already knew who you are. Your game is good. I'm aware of who you are, but I don't have time for anybody else on my play. I don't have the space for it. But if anything opens up or anything comes up, I'll be sure to give you a call. And Will's like, all right, cool. And it's at that point he goes, grabs Jazz, says bye to Jackie, because we're gonna have to continue this love triangle. And then he bounces out. And he's getting dressed in the car. They're trying to make it over to Ash's party. They get there, boat's taking off, and they're running towards the boat, and everybody's like, come on. But he makes it. Obviously, it's a show. He's got to make it for Ash. I'm not going to leave Ash hanging. As they're coming up to the boat, Ivy and Hill are there. Ivy is still pumping her liquor everywhere she can. And at this point, Hillary does check Ivy a little bit, like, hey, I thought we were supposed to be partners. And right now, it feels like you run them as a boss, and I'm kind of just your underling. And you can tell in that moment that Ivy sort of takes down her glasses, like, no, of course you're the boss. It's that voice that's like, I'm allowing you to believe you're the boss, but I'm the one who fronted all this money. So at some point, Ivy's going to come back and be like, look, I can buy you out of anything. Like, you're here because I allow you to be here. You made me a good business investment and it made sense, but I feel like eventually she's going to be like, Hill, I ain't got no time for you. But at this point, Ivy starts looking at Jazz. Now, earlier we saw a moment where Hill and Jazz were talking, and she was like, "I don't want to make this public." And Jazz was like, "I do. I'm feeling you. I want to be around you. Let's make this a thing. We should go to this party together." And Hill's like, "Nah, let's go separate because I don't want everybody to know." At this point, Ivy starts looking like, "Oh, is he single?" And she's like, "No. Well, yes, but no." It kind of just doesn't plant her flag. So Ivy's in full like, "I'm gonna get on this" type of move. Party's going on. Will and Ash have their moment. So super cute. You can tell she genuinely loves her cousin. Will gives her some writing materials, like, "Hey, yo, create, create, create. Just keep writing till you can't write anymore." And honestly, that's probably the biggest thing that she wanted outside of Will being there, and then Will giving her something. That's the thing that she kind of wanted the most, like somebody who actually sees her and cares about her. Just in that moment, because Ashley was more of an afterthought in that first season, just in that moment, we get to see a little bit more connection and how much she genuinely cares about her big cuz. Uncle Phil is giving Will looks. They're looking at each other from afar, but they're not talking. But B is there. They hug. He's hugging everybody. It's getting to see everybody. He does have a moment with Hill because Hill is giving a stank eye to Ivy, who's macking up all over Jazz. She's like, "You might want to go handle that." And he's like, "No, I'm good. I'm good." But they have their moment too. Then we finally get the moment that I think is what we all sort of knew was going to happen with an episode called The Fresh Start. It's important to note that Will standing by the railing when Uncle Phil is coming over to him. Well, right before he's coming over, though, we see Lisa trying to make a beeline to Will. She sees Uncle Phil get there first, and she kind of just takes her pass and turns around. So 2 times she's tried to go talk to Will or have a combo with Will, and it just wasn't happening. So Uncle Phil and Will go somewhere else and sit and talk, and they hash it out, have a heart to heart. And in that heart to heart, eventually Uncle Phil comes back, says that he loves him, and that he apologizes, and then he opens the door for him to come back home if and when he wants to. And then we leave that scene. Then we see Will with Lisa. This is where I feel like, Will, you kind of grind me for this. Part of this was a writing says, "Hey, we got to have a love triangle with Jackie and all of this stuff." But it's at this point that Will's like, "Hey, when I said I loved you, I meant it, and I still do. But I think it's best that we take a break. Your father doesn't like me. I don't want to keep going back and forth with this. I'm maybe in his brain he's probably like, I'm maybe trying to move in back with the Banks, and they don't get along. So I don't think this." But he's just basically he's giving her multiple reasons why they shouldn't be together. But he's doing all the talking. He's not really letting her get any words in edgewise. It's all pretty one sided. And then she's like, "Well, what does this mean?" He's like, "Well, we need to take a break." And kisses her on the forehead. She kind of leans in, and then he walks away. When he's walking away, she says, "I love you too." Obviously, he's not in earshot, but it's the first time that she had that feeling as well. So when Will does get with Jackie, ah, that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt like hell. Party's over. Ash had a good time. Sweetie randomly shows up, just not, I guess, to turn up and sing happy birthday, but Sweetie's there. That's what happens when you have money. Which is always crazy because the boat was sort of off the dock. So was Sweetie just stashed in a dock in a cargo space somewhere until it was time to bring her out? That's weird. They get back home, party's over. Jazz drops off Hillary and Ivy, and Ivy's just all over him. He's taking the photos, and Jazz is not really sweating her. He's like, "I took a photo of you and your drink because we're at the party, but I'm not thinking anything of you." All of his attention, all he cares about is Hill. But Ivy just starts trying to kiss up on Jazz, and at that point, Hill's just like, "All right, look, stop. Let's stop this. He's not single. He's mine, and I'm going to make it official." And they just start making out. Now he's like, "Well, this is awkward. Y'all kind of cute though, so I'm not gonna worry about it, but this is awkward." So clearly Ivy doesn't have a problem with the relationship part of it, but I do feel like their business relationship is going to continue to be tested because it don't seem like Ivy respects Hill the way that Hill respects her. Will comes back home. Everybody makes it home, and Will did not hesitate to get out of Jazz's place. I don't even think it didn't even seem like we saw a scene where he went back to Jazz's place to get his stuff. He's like, "No, I'm here. Cool. Where I'm at. Let me back in." So obviously, the whole point of this, A Fresh Start, was to put the Fresh Prince back with with Banks's, and kind of from this point on, he's under their roof, and the family continues on. It ends with a little bit of a cliffhanger, though. We get the call that Doc says, "Hey, been paying attention. I know. Let's go ahead and bring you on." So he's going to put him under his wing and sort of bring him in a little bit. And JB was like, "Oh man, I'm glad. That's cool. I'm glad you already sort of interested." It's like, "Yeah, I'm interested a little." And he's got a good game. Not typically what I want, but somebody that I want. I want to kind of invest in, especially the stuff that they don't tell us about. And he turns a page and he shows Will hanging out with the Banks. And he's aware now of Will's ties with the Banks family, thinking that, hey, he's got some money or he's got some ties that can give him a little bit one up. So if he can jam Will up or get jam Will into any type of trouble, he'll sort of have something hanging over the head of Will. But one thing that Will wanted to do was sort of make a name for himself on his own, not with the name and recognition of the Bankses. And now if he finds out that the only reason that they want him has nothing to do with his skills or his own talent, but everything to do with his connection to the Banks, he's going to be brokenhearted there. Serves him right for the way he's doing Lisa, though. I'm kidding a little bit, but it should be interesting to see how the Jackie Lisa thing sort of all pans out. And maybe, unfortunately, Carlton ends up. I hope Carlton doesn't end up back with the Lisa situation. I hope that's over. But yeah, I feel like Will Karma is sort of getting on him with this whole Lisa thing. Again, puts everything back on the place, on the right path, and then we sort of have the new thread of Doc kind of coming in and being the new antagonist, if you will. And it's cool, I think, to introduce a Jackie. She feels fun. She feels like the hip young person that sort of gives Will the business. It's going to be interesting to see how that all sort of blossoms and burdens out. But I think the other thing is going to be kind of cool is to see Ashley grow into this social, political butterfly, if you will, and see how Mrs. Hughes probably being let go or fired or demoted galvanizes her and sort of the school and the black school social club to kind of like get behind her and see what waves they can make. What did you guys think about this first episode? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have the podcast by the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.